The courts of appeals and now increasingly even the United States Supreme Court are saying no to Donald Trump's illegal policies. As you can see, 2/3 of the time.
The legal tide has turned. Time and again, Donald Trump's efforts to bend the law to his will have collided with the hard, unyielding force of the judicial system. The latest chapter in this ongoing saga is not a minor setback. It is a seismic defeat. In courtrooms across the nation, the president's aggressive, often vindictive efforts to wield his power have been rejected at every turn. Whether it's trying to punish his perceived enemies like Letitia James or Jim Comey, or attempting to force his political will upon federal agencies and their workers, the courts have had enough. What does this mean? The consequences are more than just legal losses. They signal a crisis of authority at the highest level. These defeats aren't small, they are strategic losses, eroding the very fabric of executive power Trump once believed he could wield unchecked. And now, the consequences are becoming impossible to ignore. The judicial pushback is not isolated. It's part of a broader pattern that shows no sign of letting up. Every attempt to use the power of the pen, the purse, or personnel to settle scores or cement political gains is being struck down. The political establishment is watching, the public is taking note, and most importantly, Trump is losing in court. A lot. At the core of this is a crisis of credibility. For Trump, the courtroom is no longer a tool of enforcement or victory, but a battlefield where his empire is slowly collapsing. From defunding federal agencies to firing civil servants, from undermining key government figures to trying to push his own agenda through unqualified appointments, Trump's legal strategy has been exposed for what it is: reckless and increasingly untenable. Every time the courts slap down one of his moves, it chips away at the aura of invincibility he once commanded. His administration, once believed to have an unassailable grasp on power, now finds itself bogged down in one legal defeat after another. This isn't just about isolated incidents of legal failure. This is a larger pattern. Time after time, Trump's efforts to consolidate power through questionable legal means have been reversed in court. The message is clear. The courts are pushing back. It isn't just a matter of politics, it's a matter of law and accountability. What started as an attempt to control the levers of government has turned into an unraveling of trust in the very systems that once allowed him to wield influence. Trump's ability to wield unchecked power has been the hallmark of his presidency. From the very beginning, he promised to be a disruptor, a leader who wouldn't play by the traditional rules. But now, as the legal battles mount, that narrative is collapsing. The trust in his ability to command the forces of government has evaporated in the face of mounting judicial defeats. The once ironclad certainty that he could bend the system to his will has been replaced by a new reality. The system is pushing back, and it's pushing hard. Trump's strategy of using the legal system as a tool to settle political scores and further his agenda is no longer working. The courts, once seen as pliable, are now standing firm. Each ruling that pushes back against his agenda weakens the president's authority and chips away at his credibility. What was once an administration of unchecked power is now one of constant legal defeats. The courts at both the federal and appellate levels have made it abundantly clear the president's power is not absolute. Trump has suffered one legal defeat after another as he's tried to use his office to exact personal and political revenge. His efforts to remove, defund, and fire those who stand in his way have failed spectacularly in courtrooms across the country. The most recent case involves the president's efforts to punish political enemies like Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, and former FBI Director Jim Comey. Trump's attempt to weaponize the legal system for personal gain has been unequivocally rejected. But the legal defeats don't stop there. They span the full spectrum of Trump's administration. Whether it's trying to remove federal workers for political reasons or pushing forward with ill-conceived policies like sending Marines to Los Angeles without constitutional authority, the courts have said no again and again. The message is clear. Trump's personal vendettas and political maneuvers are not above the law. Now, the escalation has reached a boiling point. Trump's legal strategy has run headlong into a wall of judicial resistance. Federal trial courts, the courts of appeals, and even the once partisan Supreme Court are rejecting his policies. This is not a matter of political bias. It's a matter of legal principles. The courts are stepping in to prevent what they see as overreach. In cases involving the appointment of unqualified political cronies, the courts have ruled that Trump cannot simply install his allies into positions of power with the stroke of a pen. The decisions have been clear. These appointments are unlawful, and the people placed in these positions have no legal authority to act. Take, for instance, the case involving Lindsey Halligan, a Trump appointee who was supposed to play a key role in his legal battles. The courts have now ruled that Halligan's appointment was unlawful. A Trump-appointed judge is even asking why Halligan continues to sign legal documents under the guise of authority. This is a direct challenge to the very structure of Trump's power. It's not just a legal issue. It's a sign of deep institutional unraveling. As the cases pile up, Trump's options are quickly running out. The escalation of legal defeats is beginning to erode his political capital. No matter how much he tries to frame these rulings as personal attacks or political witch hunts, the reality is inescapable. The courts are standing firm, and they're not just pushing back on his policies, they're dismantling the foundation of his administration. The image of Donald Trump as a master of power and persuasion is rapidly collapsing in the face of legal defeats. Throughout his presidency, Trump has cultivated an image of a man who can do no wrong, a leader who operates above the law, who bends the system to his will. This image, carefully crafted over years, is now in tatters. The reality is that Trump is losing in court, repeatedly, and there's no getting around it. The disconnect between the image Trump projected and the reality of his legal battles is glaring. In the public eye, he was the untouchable president who defied convention and wielded power with impunity. But in the courtroom, he has been a failure, one legal setback after another. The legal system has rejected his attempts to use presidential power as a tool of retribution and personal gain. What was once seen as the pinnacle of political maneuvering is now being exposed as hubris, a reckless overreach that has proven unsustainable. This collapse of image versus reality has significant ramifications. The credibility Trump once commanded, both in the eyes of his supporters and his detractors, is fading. The legal defeats are stacking up, and with each ruling, his power becomes more constrained. The once mighty image of Donald Trump as the unassailable president is being replaced by the reality of a man who cannot win in court, who cannot enforce his will on the very system that allowed him to rise to power in the first place. So, what are Trump's options now? There are no easy choices. The options left to him are all bad. He can continue to push back against the courts, doubling down on his defiance and casting the judiciary as an enemy. But that's a losing battle, and one that only further erodes his standing. The legal system is not going to bend for him, no matter how loudly he complains. The courts are not just rejecting his policies, they're dismantling his legal authority piece by piece. Trump could also attempt to appeal these rulings, but that too seems like a futile exercise. The Supreme Court, once seen as a final recourse for Trump, has turned against him in key cases. The justices are not giving him the free pass he once expected. With his options shrinking, Trump finds himself trapped in a legal quagmire. The pressure is mounting, and with every defeat, his ability to move forward in any meaningful way grows weaker. This is where the rule of law comes into play. As much as Trump has tried to paint his legal setbacks as personal attacks, the reality is much simpler. The courts are doing their job. They are upholding the Constitution and enforcing the boundaries of presidential power. Trump's overreach, his attempts to use the power of the presidency for personal and political gain, have run afoul of these principles. The rule of law is not a partisan issue. It is a foundational principle that governs every action taken by the government. The courts have stepped in to remind the president that no one, not even the most powerful man in the world, is above the law. Whether it's the defunding of agencies or the firing of political enemies, the courts are sending a clear message. The executive branch does not have unlimited power. The power of the pen, the purse, and personnel cannot be wielded without limit. The courts are standing firm, and they are ensuring that the rule of law remains intact, even when the president tries to circumvent it. The political and institutional fallout from these legal defeats is already beginning to take shape. Trump's inability to successfully enact his policies through legal means is creating deep fractures within his administration. His political allies are beginning to distance themselves, sensing the growing tide of legal failures. The trust that once existed between Trump and his political base is eroding as his legal failures mount. Trump's grip on the Republican Party is slipping as the political cost of these legal battles becomes increasingly apparent. Institutionally, the damage is also significant. Trump's legal failures are undermining the credibility of his administration, leaving him with fewer allies in Congress and fewer avenues for pursuing his agenda. The system, which once bent to his will, is now pushing back hard. And with every defeat, the institutional framework that once supported him is beginning to collapse. Trump's power is not only being checked by the courts, it is being dismantled piece by piece. And so the inevitable ending looms. The legal defeats are not just setbacks. They are the slow unraveling of Trump's presidency. No matter how much he tries to spin these losses as victories, the reality is clear. He is losing in court, and the consequences are dire. The once unassailable president is now faced with the very real possibility that his political empire is crumbling, not just because of outside forces, but because of his own miscalculations. The courts are winning, and Trump is losing. And as he stands at the precipice, it's clear. There is no going back. The damage has been done, and there is no way to undo it. The legal system has stepped in, and the rule of law is taking its course. Donald Trump's reign of unchecked power is coming to an end. The inevitable has arrived, and it's clear that no amount of legal maneuvering will be able to save him now.